Hey, Katie Bug, how you doing, girl? Sweet wife of mine, future wife. Um, I decided that it would be better to have the yard for your little dog because it won't be able to run around. Because, like I said, even with the if we shave her because it's a girl dog, her hair short. There's too many stickers out here. Um, I mean, I'll go ahead and put the smaller wire around the fence. I'll just double it up or take it off. It's not even really. Actually, no. Yeah, I can just buy the new. I got the wire, but just in case she gets out and like walks down the driveway, because I've got recycled asphalt. She won't be able to wander and get into trouble and get out. But mostly her area will be the backyard, which will have grass. And instead of being fenced in with a chain link fence, I think split rail would look better. So the vertical posts, put them in the ground. Half fill them with concrete, half fill them with dirt, and tamp it. That way, you don't need to go crazy with the cheese whiz. You don't want to be using all the concrete, but you want to just sort of half and half it, just sort of a more conservative approach, right? Um, In fact, yeah, fill it about the hole. You'll dig the hole down. 2 feet or whatever, um, 2.5 maybe, and I forget. Just it kind of depends on how long. Well, you can cut the post, but you want the post to hold. Now split rail fences aren't designed to be sit on, um, but I mean you can, but they're not really designed for that. Like even if you're up towards the post, that the way that they, you know, insert into each other, it's just they're not really made to be sat on. But um, the posts need to be like hardy. You know what I mean? Just build it strong. So yeah, 3/4 fill it with concrete, and then the fill the rest with dirt, but tamp it down. And then make sure it's kind of upward so the water doesn't settle down in there, and tamp that and just call it good. But so the posts, at whatever height, you want. I don't know, 4 feet ish. And they come like pre-cut, with the holes and stuff. You might have to kind of shave them off a bit, so they fit better, and then secure them. Again, you can get away with, if you build them right, with not, but um, it's better to just shoot a screw on either side, like a big long, screw and call it good. You don't have to use four, just use two. And then I'll run a wire around that, not chicken wire because that looks bad, but like a little, like something you'd maybe run around your garden to keep the rabbits out or something. Between the wooden, it depends on how decorative you want your garden. Do you want to just put a wire fence around it, or do you want to put a? Because I would like a garden. Have to bring in, better soil, but then just that soil is that soil. I think putting it on the ground. Well, they do have little rototillers and stuff. Like, do you want raised beds so it's easier to pick? I think that could be something to look into. It contains the roots, so the roots are going to grow more down, but can put more water in it, and it'll be designed in such a way so it's a deeper soak. Um, and the roots, they're designed the way that they are, so they'll have more branches and finer hair roots up towards the top, and they'll be more condensed. At least I'm assuming. I'm just making this up because remember that's what I do. But there'll also be some that go down, maybe because they're genetically coded that way to search for water. Or if you keep a deep soak, and maybe you can put, design hoses and stuff to, so you'll. It's hard for me to explain because I don't talk me too good, but I'll have water out there for you and me, and there'll be a hose, and there'll be like a shut-off valve, and it'll be designed so we can get the water out during the winter so it doesn't break, because water wins. Water breaks everything. It breaks steel. So it absolutely wins. It breaks shit. So unless it's got a way where it can get but sometimes it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes it won't just expand out. It'll start to freeze slowly, and now it's kind of got some ice crystals and blah blah blah. And if it's set, well, now it's set. So even if it's got a way to vent, quote unquote, to the left or to the right or anywhere, if it's decided it's a set mold, it can still break. Like if you leave a plastic gallon jug in your car, it won't break, because it has give and it kind of expands up. But if you leave a glass jug in your jar, it's not going to squeeze upwards. It's going to break. The bottom, wherever, it's just once it starts to freeze, it's freezing how it's going to freeze, and it will absolutely win. I am not joking. I've seen it happen. It will break metal. So, anyway, and just turn that on, so it'll water in the dirt. you know I mean, it'll have some drip stuff. It'll be set up nice. So that's what I'm thinking. Okay, for me and for you, sweet boo, Katie Bug, my boo boo thing. Ooh, you know what else rhymes with thing? Your pretty face. That didn't make any sense. But and now you're like, well, now you're starting to think about it. Did you just call me a butt face? Like, what's her name? Oh no, that doesn't even jive. You know what I mean? Like either or, and especially if that just doesn't work. That's why I christened her as Mrs. Butthead Face Potato Mug, and all the names that I have for her is because when she first showed up, it's like you'd rather look at her butt than her face. And then she turned into a freak, and all that stuff, and now she's just this grotesque, hideous creature that I don't understand how anybody could have feelings for. Now, obviously, the Gweed, and he's, like I said, I hype him up, but he actually kind of looks like a dork. Like, if you saw him, you'd laugh, but anyway, but he puts those shades on, man. It's like, highway to the danger zone. So, but she's her own case, and like I said, I'm sure she's just a wonderful girlfriend and wife and mother, and the Gweed is probably like, oh yeah, because she probably does make him sandwiches and shit like that, so he's like, oh yeah, and all that. And she's probably a pretty decent lay because she's a fugly chick, so she knows, I'll really suck this guy off, because it's like survival for her, you know what I mean? At least it was for a long time. But anyway, lost my place. I remember what I was talking about, but I lost my place. Where was I? The garden. So raised beds. The roots will be, set up at respond a different way. They won't be competing. The good thing though is they won't be competing with other plants. And again, I'm just making this up. So, you don't have plants, beefing up their root system, and snuffing out their neighbors. It's like, hey, give the squash a chance to grow too. There's no reason squash and zucchini can't be friends. But the zucchini's like, fuck this motherfucker. And the roots, you know what I'm saying. So that's one thing that's good, contained, raised beds. The roots are going to respond a little bit different, but the roots just want water. So generally they spread out, but so like I said, I think they'll be more condensed, and they'll grow down a little bit either by genetic code, or like they know, like, hey, it's getting a little crowded here. Um, cool, you know what I'm saying, dog? Maybe dog. But so have like a drip system up top, or like a mist system. But remember, some of that topsoil is going to be lost through evapidation. And so keep that in mind. Um, as far as like a mulch system goes, even then, you're still going to lose some of it. Then you got to get the proper mulch. So, if it rains, you want free water. Like you don't want to use grass for mulch because it's too fine and it like melds together and it creates a seal. You want to use large wood chips. And then if you have dogs or cats that are going to, pee in it or dig in it, or the wind blows it away, you want to put some sort of cover over that, and get those like yard, they look kind of like big staples, and water can go through them, like rain and stuff. It's very like open and coarse, but it keeps your mulch in there. And then all that shit that I've said, the deep soak, especially for trees. But if it's just vegetables, or grass, you don't need a deep soak. That would be a waste. It's going to go past the roots. But yeah, you can design some stuff that goes down, maybe just like 4 inches into the ground, because it's going to soak when you turn it on. Turn it on for like 10 minutes at the proper time of day, and you'll have to look up what that is, whatever, because you don't want like it to be too moist all the time, because then you'll get mold, and then the mold spores are competing with the roots. And I know a little bit about that. I've heard, but I'm also sort of making it up. Like as far as the roots, how they spread and how deep they go, I just made that up. I don't know. But I have actually heard a little bit, about like water, for example. If you water not, like a shower, that water sits on the leaves and it acts like a magnifying glass. Because I remember I asked that. Yeah, my dad bought some trees, and I'm like, what's with all these like little burn marks? Yeah, and apparently he asked the tree farmers, or they told him, or whatever. He probably had to ask. Why would you tell people shit? And he's all, I guess when they water them, or it rains, whatever. Because like, well, if it does that, then why would you water them from above? But that's what happens basically. Is the water sits on the leaves, sun shines down, it fucking burns a hole in the leaf. So the more you know, ding, ding, ding. But also, if you keep it too moist underground and it stays moist underground, then mold grows, and that's not good. So, do your homework. Like I said, the internet is a tool, but you can find people who either don't know what they're talking about, or you got people like Ben and Brian who are like, I stumbled across I was looking up how to grow marijuana without water, and I stumbled across this gardens. And maybe they talk like that, whatever, but, so I'm going to write my own page, how to grow a garden with Gatorade, like in the movie, whatever. That's what plants crave. And that's just everything has a flip side. And well, Ben and Brian gravitate towards the internet. Do you have a thin neck? Do you have limp wrists? Small, soft hands? Thin fingers? No shoulders? Are you a bitch? Are you a pussy? Do you have an anime girlfriend? There's boxes that are checked, that you people like that gravitate towards the internet for that reason. Do you like video games? Do you post your video game, battles? And you've decided to take it to the next level and just post it as an actual battle. Are you now making your own battles that never happened on your video game because you're a fucking Ben and or a Brian? So just keep that in mind. Is the shit that you're getting legit? Because there's people is like they'll do that. They'll write a report and then wait till the last minute and oh by the way the moon is made out of cheese. And just there's people who they type really really quick. And that's their world. They sit there. They have a really comfortable chair that like glows in the dark and has lights and shit. They got a backlit keyboard, that's like broken in half so they can, and they got their mouse, which is wireless, that also has a keyboard on it, and it's like its own separate computer. They have 2 computer screens, and while they're just fucking around, drinking the latest energy drink and taking a puff off of one hitter, that's like their entertainment. They spend like at least 4 hours a day beating off to anime, playing video games, doing some trolling, which could be anywhere, because again, human nature, right? It's kind of like I talk shit about Fat Bag, because I'm a coward. I would never be that mean to her. I mean, I'm not above it, but I don't see it happening, that playing out like that. But so they'll maybe make a UFO sighting or whatever, and they'll just, because they're savvy like that. They make their characters, they customize shit. It's what they do, like Puss Boy, Hey, these, people are pieces of shit, and apparently he was offended by that, and then he had a hard on for me for the remainder of the time that I worked there, so. And I remember I said that he was there. I was talking to Ladybug, not Katybug. And I was double talking, is what I call it now. I'm all, guys like me shouldn't have egos. Or, I said something like, I'm number one. My mommy tells me every week. At least once a week. Or I said something like, I'm a big boy now. And she was like, my mom still thinks I'm a kid, blah, blah. And Puss Boy was sitting there, so I was talking to him, well, double talking. I'm all, guys like me shouldn't have egos. And the stupid fuck could have just left it as is, but he decided to make sure that everybody in the room, and there wasn't a whole lot, and he had somebody that he was like training. I walked out, he's all, later, bro, So it's like you could have just let that slide and nobody would know, but now you just let everybody in the room know that I was talking to your stupid dumbass because you claimed it. It was up in the air for interpretation, and then you made it yours. So I just thought that was funny. Again, guys like you shouldn't beef with people. You really shouldn't. So, yeah, Mrs. Butthead fucked him. And dated him. And dated him. And fucked him. Oh, yeah. I'm pretty sure she dated the troll. It's like, yeah, things that make you go, buh. Holy shit. Big Red, probably got freckles all over his body and shit. Oh, every time I pulled up to that thing, and I'm me, so the rules don't apply to me, right? So, just like, hey, Gremlin. He's like, all right. He would kind of talk quick and shit. It's like, God damn. And now she's with the Gweed, and it's like, all right. Anyway. Sweet boo thing. 20 minutes. I've decided that's going to look better. And I'll have one gate going out towards the garden. One gate, so on the west side. One gate on the north side, just for practicality. to get up there is because I'm going to have some stuff and some outbuildings. So you will probably, well, both of us will use the west gate. I'll use the north gate. I'm going to have like a tough shed with like the lawnmower shit in that. And then there's going to be another space. It won't be all lawn. There'll be like some. I'll probably go with rocks as opposed to recycled asphalt. That's kind of a coveted material. And it'll have a gate where I can like back in a trailer and stuff if I need to unload shit. I won't drive the vehicle on the grass because that'll leave a rut like forever. But I can at least bring it in, and then use the riding lawnmower or the little trailer or whatever other trailers that I'm gonna have. So, because like I said, I live in this house, but it's not at full speed yet, right? You understand what I'm saying? Um, I don't have all the outbuildings that I want. I don't have all the equipment that I want. And just because I'm, just sort of, like I said, I'm really looking forward to this heavy equipment operator shit. Now I don't know what the future holds, with this company. Maybe I'll just stay there, and be cool. Maybe 5 years down the road, I want to get a job, up in Wyoming, operating equipment, in a big mine where it's like 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. But then that would present a problem with my boo thing. And like I said, I don't know if you want kids. I don't know how old you are. But maybe you just want to be that couple that doesn't have kids, because you fucked around, wasted time. I don't care either way. So, but, like I said, your sister, I don't know. I don't know what your deal is. I don't know. I'm going to take it you're not, because you live in Chicago. I don't know like what your monetary situation is and what kind of jobs you've had, because like I said, you're older and I just don't know you, but that'll be a glorious, wonderful process of us getting to know each other. And I might find out that you've always just gone, you've always, well, like Mrs. Butthead, we've talked about her before, she's in the same boat. She's older. She needs a man to survive. Like real, if she wants to get, because she could, continue to do that, living, chasing that move-in special, making, not a living wage and adjusting her lifestyle to the money that she does make, and it kind of falls into kind of a loop, you know what I mean? It's kind of self-feeding. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with living for the weekend, cigarettes and beer, but most people don't have the discipline to like put away money and start saving it and get a toehold so that someday maybe they can, stop paying rent. Because especially these days, you know what I mean? I mean, it's like a mortgage really isn't all that much more than rent. At least when I got in on it. But, it's like you're trapped. You're just wasting all this money and it's not going towards anything. You're not paying anything off. So, and, you got to buy groceries and gas and money. Yeah, groceries, gas, and money for just stuff. If you do want to, you should pay yourself. Set it up as soon as you can. CDs, mutual funds, emergency funds, um, retirement funds. Kind of diversify your money, and just put a little bit in each. You have your emergency fund, but then you also have your savings fund, and then you got your checking account. That you have all your automated withdrawals. So your credit cards are paid. Every month. A lot of people can't do that though. They don't have that option. They have to pay the minimum. And they're just getting more and more and more in debt. And just people like that, who are just hopelessly, they're fuck it. So they end up, like Mrs. Butthead, you know, girls just want to have fun. Well, girls do anyway, but they need to blow off steam because they've been working all week at this shitty job that, doesn't pay enough to, they're just always keeping their head above water, So you might be that girl, It's like on the weekend you end up spending, you know, a couple $100, you know, because it's not worth it to you to clock that away, you know. There's roughly 4 weekends in a month, you know, so that could be anywhere from 400 to $800 that you pay yourself to slowly, month by month, get a toehold, get ahead, pump it into the stock market. Your money gets introduced to other people's money. They hit it off, they fuck, and they make other money, and they meet other people's money. That's a very my future bustie's like, that's not how it works. Shut up, wasn't talking to you. I'm trying to sound smart. World's worst wingman, you be. I don't know how that works at all, bro. Shut up. But anyway, 25 minutes. So I guess that's all I gotta say. But hey, oh, I'm so lonely. I fucking hate everybody except you. You're my sweet, sweet boo. Put your butt on me. Then rub them smooth panties all around.